All right, give me a second. And there we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome back, chat. Let me just check if everything is okay. And there we go. That should do it. I do apologize for the mess in the background. It's been a hectic night, and I'm still not over that game, man. I'll be honest. I'm still not over that game. I mean, that was uh ridiculous, for the lack of a better word. That was ridiculous. And we're gonna talk about, obviously, we're obviously gonna talk about how that game was, and all the emotions and all the feelings that a lot of you have after that, I'm sure. Um, it's it's just been a wild night, you know. It's been a really wild night, and it's been a game that I think a lot of people, and I know myself included, thought after the 2-0 it was over. I mean, given how Barcelona were playing and what was going on, it really did feel like that was it. It's no coming back from that. I think for larger parts of that game, it just didn't work out. Barcelona just could not do what they needed to do. You know, and and for me, it's a problem because sure, we Barca were able to really get that win going after conceding those two goals, but it's also a problem when you think about the fact that that's not going to fly against other sides. Like Atleti, after the Champions League game, really suffered, right? They really suffered from that game after the game against Real Madrid in the Champions League. And coming into this game, they did not look tired, to be honest. They didn't look tired. They didn't look phased by anything that happened that game. But chat, look, I want y'all to tell me, who is your man of the match? Because obviously Lamine Yamal got the actual man of the match, the official man of the match. But who was your man of the match? I'm really curious, man, because I honestly thought there were some players that really did well. I think Inigo Martinez was really solid. I think Rafinha just kept trying. Lewandowski, for me, barring that one goal, he just is not. It's not it, man. It just doesn't work. It does not work. Okay, so what we're gonna do is actually pretty simple, right? I am going to show you the stats from tonight's game, courtesy of Blogonogram's partner FUTMOB, one of Blogonogram's partners, FUTMOB. And we're just gonna look at that because I think that is, I always think it's really interesting when you look at stats for games like these because it's never gonna be what you expect. So let us go over to the stats. All right, let's see here, and there we go. All right. Now, match day 28 is this one, right? This is what we just went through. There's 10 more games left, and then also the Osasuna game, right? So there's still a lot left. Now, with that in mind, right, a game like this, Barcelona had 66% of the ball, which is not surprising against Atleti, right? Even the Atleti of this season, I don't think that's really surprising. But if you look at the stats between the first and the second half, there is a really big difference in how Barcelona played that, right? So the first half, Barcelona had Atleti had 0.7 expected goals, which means the chances they create are that big. And it's a range that goes from 0 to 1, right? So the closer to 1, The closer to one, the closer to basically being a really clear cut opportunity it is. So the chances they created from the shots they had were very very clear cut chances. And for Barcelona it was 0.37, and they scored 0 goals that half. They were god awful for a big part of that in that half, right? When it came to the finishing, when it came to the creation department in terms of creating chances, it just did not work out. And they had the same amount of shots as Atleti did, and the same amount of target as Atleti did, and Atleti got the 1 goal to give them the 1-0 lead at halftime, right? And then you look at the second half, and it's completely, completely different. It's flipped on its head. Barca with a .88 xG, 9 shots. Atleti had 3. 5 shots on target for Barca, and Atleti had 1. And the one they had was the one they scored from Alexander Sørloth. Barca had 5 shots on target, scored 4. Which in that case, you could also say, is that not on Jan Oblak? Should he not be saving those? And maybe he should. But, I mean, the first goal was the one where Levi does the turn and then just, slides a bullet home, right? That was the first goal. Lamin's goal, the Ferran's goal, was a header that I think if Oblak had a better game, I think he would have saved it. But also, Oblak was not really tested. I mean, on target, Barca had 1 shot the first half, and then the second shot on target was Ferran Torres' header, I believe. Right, so we'll take a look here. They had that shot, which was saved, which I believe was, the 76th, right? So before Ferran. So between Leva's goal and Ferran's goal, there was 1 shot, which was really not that hard for a keeper to save. And that was the Lamine shot where he went from the side, well, from here, from the edge of the box, and he basically tried to drive it with a strong shot towards the goal. And then you had Ferran's header. And I think, maybe Oblak should have done better. But I also think that people have to really, really appreciate the mentality, the difference in mentality that we've seen from Barcelona, because it really, really has been different. I mean, this Barcelona team is not the same Barcelona team that we used to see in the slightest. It's really, really, really different. And when you look at how they managed to turn the game, I mean, 70 minutes, you have 20 minutes left plus injury time. That's it. And you're down 2-0, and you've been completely played off the park in terms of attack and play. Barca had nothing when it came to the attack. And let me know in chat. I'm genuinely curious what you guys thought about that game overall. Because obviously we're going to be sitting here on a euphoric high. Those of us that follow Barcelona and are fans of Barcelona and all that, right? We're going to sit on a euphoric high and say, oh yeah, Barca won. That's the best. Like, that's why we're the best team in the world, right? And I get that sentiment. But at the same time, Barca really, really struggled. Like, for a big, big part of that game, Barca struggled a lot. I really like looking at it, right? Like, in the second half alone, Barca had over twice as many passes as Atleti did, right? 307 with an 89% accuracy, which on its own is really, really crazy if you just look at the numbers. But most of their passes were in Atleti's half. Like 50 passes in the second half were in Barca's own half. From like of Barca's passes, 50 of those in the second half. And the entire second half were in Barca's own half. The rest were in Atleti's, which is crazy. But you look at the stats, and I mean, it makes sense, right? Atleti had a lot of long passes, and that's the ones they scored from. Those are the passes they scored from, and it worked. But it's also really one of those games where it does feel like had Barca faced someone else, I don't think they would have been able to come back. And it's not to say anything about Barca's quality. It's not that. It's more so, not many teams will just fold like a lawn chair and let you take over the way Atleti do. The way because that's the way Atleti play football, right? They go, okay, you know what? We have really, really good attackers. We have Juli Alvarez. We have Antoine Griezmann. We have, Giuliano Simeone, Samuel Lino, Sørloth off the bench, which in itself is pretty crazy, right? So we have all these attacking players, and we got midfielders who know how to hold down the fort and really, really bother the opposition. and we got a solid line of defense, and then we have Jan Oblak in goal, right? So that's what they play with, and it works because some teams are not that comfortable in possession. Like Real Madrid are not that comfortable in possession, so it works very well against Real Madrid. And some teams are really comfortable in possession, but if you mark out properly, they're not going to have anyone to pass it to, and the possession is going to be useless, which is what we saw in the first half. Look, the first half, looking at the passes again, Barca passed the ball more than they did, but they also had more passes in their own half. They were really, really put under pressure, right? And in this half, Atleti had more accurate long passes. You know? And it just goes to show, like, Atleti in the first half had a strategy that was, let's just try and get a goal off the counters. Let them attack as much as they want. We'll just block out all their options, and we won't let them do anything on the ball. So when they get the ball, they're not going to have anybody to pass it to. And we saw that a lot of times. Lewandowski got the ball a couple of times in the first half, and he just could not finish. He just couldn't finish. It just didn't work. And then you look at the second half, and it's a different game because Lewandowski was not the central focus of the attack anymore. When Ferran, later on in the half, and that's the turning point for me, man. Like, I've really, really been singing high praises about Ferran Torres for a long time. And I know people who are not happy with that. I've said this on commentary too, right? His mobility up front adds something different to Barca. Even if he's not going to finish every chance he gets. Although today he had 2 chances and he scored both. But he adds something different to Barcelona's front line. I personally disagreed with the fact that he was subbed on for Dani Olmo. Because in my head, he should have been subbed on for Lewandowski. Because Lewandowski was not really, he was AWOL the whole game. And then he came up 2 minutes after Charlotte scores the 2-0 and just does that out of nowhere in very Luis Suarez-esque fashion. I mean, Luis Suarez, in his later days for Barca, could be dropping a 2 out of 10. And then out of nowhere, he'd score a flying volley from like the other side of the pitch. And Barca win the game. Right? So we're seeing a similar trajectory from Robert Lewandowski, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But the thing that Barca didn't do well when Suarez left was that they didn't have anyone ready. With Lewandowski, they have to have someone ready because you're gonna struggle if you don't have a number 9, and your style of play requires a number 9. You're gonna struggle. It's not to say that Barca couldn't just apply the false 9 tactic and go, we'll play Ferran Torres and then we'll give Lamine Yamal more finishing courses. We'll get Rafinha into more like finishing positions and we'll play a false 9, or like with Dani Olmo up there or something. I don't see a reason why that wouldn't work. But I also think that with Hansi Flick's tactics and the way the team presses, I think it's really important to have someone who can finish your chances and have someone to rely on to be that target man. And Lewandowski right now is that guy, but he's also not that guy that you can rely on finishing 5 out of 7 chances. He'll probably miss 6, and then he'll score 1 from a ridiculous angle. And that's just the harsh truth. You know, so I just think it's really important that Barcelona really, consider that. Because you look at like the numbers for Robert Lewandowski, right? He's the top goal scorer in La Liga with 21 goals, right? Now, if we go to the La Liga, the Liga stats, the guy behind him is Kylian Mbappe, who joined Real Madrid this season. And then you have Ante Budimir, who, again, to me is an unsung hero of La Liga. I think he's always been quality, even before Osasuna. But that's it. Like, that's the top 3. And then you have Rafinha, and then Oyhan Sanset from Athletic Club, Ayoze Perez, and then you have Sørloth, who also joined Atleti this season, and Julian Alvarez, who's also on 11. Mind you, these 2 players were at 10 goals before this, so they weren't even in the top 10. And now after this game, they cracked the top 10 because they both scored their 11th goal respectively of the season, right? And, you look at, like, some of these stats are kind of funny, right? Like, shots per 90, Endrick has 11. Compared to every other player, he has 11. But obviously, he doesn't play every game. He doesn't play 90 minutes. But he has 11 shots per 90 with a 7.7 conversion rate, which sounds terrible. But he's actually scored a decent amount of goals. Right? And then you have Lamine and Robert Lewandowski with 3 to 4 shots per 90. 3 to 4 shots per 90 minutes. Let that sink in. That's Barcelona's starting striker. less than 4 shots per 90 minutes in La Liga this season in 28 matches. Let's just say he's played 26. Just for the fun of it, let's say he's played 26. That's still a very, very low amount, you know? And I don't know, man. I just think it's really important to keep that in mind because Barcelona really need to start thinking about that. You know what I mean? They really need to start thinking about, like, okay, we have a striker who's doing well, but he's not doing that well, and we need someone to take over at some point, and we should probably think about that sooner rather than later. And that's just it, man. That's the point. For the other parts of the game, I thought the defense was very solid. I mean, barring those goals, I thought the defense was very solid. Inigo Martinez definitely struggled, right? And there really isn't much to say other than that. He struggled, but he didn't he didn't struggle as in he did poorly. He struggled as in he just had a tough match. Like he really had to fight for it, you know? And he did well. And again, it goes back to what I was saying before. It goes back to what I said on stream the other day. It goes back to what I've been saying on the German Shot. The reason why the system works for Inigo Martinez is because it requires physicality, and he has that. Same thing with Araujo. That's also why, like, some players that maybe would have fit Barca in the past, like if you put a Gerard Piqué into this, I don't know that he would fit as well. He actually might fit decently because he still has some physicality at least, and he's got decent pace. But the thing with this style of play is that it does not require pace. It requires physicality and high football IQ. And that's why it works for Inigo Martinez. Even in a game like this today, I think that's why it works. You know, and you look at the match ratings. He had an 8.7, which I honestly think is very, very deserved. I thought he was ridiculously good today for the most part, and he also did get the assist for Lewandowski's goal. Right, Casado struggled, but I mean it's kind of to be expected, right? Like it's not like he had a bad game. It's just that they had a midfield that knew how to contain him and limit his options. So when he did pass the ball, it wouldn't be a progressive pass unless it's out to Lamine and then he's like completely cornered, or to Koundé who finds Lamine and then he's completely cornered, and then Casado has to like either track back or step up, and then they lose possession, and then Atleti are on the counter. You know, but I honestly thought, I thought Balde did a lot today. I really thought he really was doing the most, and he really kept trying and plugging away. I don't believe that. I mean, I guess if you count, depends on what you define as dribbles. But I thought he dribbled a decent amount. And it's interesting too, because when it says passes into the final third, obviously he was in the final third for a majority of that game. You know, and you can make of that what you want, but I honestly thought the fullbacks for Barca, I thought they did really well today. I guess less than an 8 rating for Koundé is fair enough, but I just think that for how this game went and for all the stuff that was in the, like, all the talk that was before the game and the whole situation between Atleti and Real Madrid in the Champions League and all that, right? I thought Barca had a game that, you know, they came into the game and it was kind of obvious that Atleti were going to be hit. So Barca had to strike first, but the only problem was that they couldn't strike first because Atleti just played full lockdown mode and just did not let them pass. And, you know, I just think that's really interesting that they managed to do that in the fashion they did. And I think Barcelona did very, very well to combat that and really just, really just be able to, at the end, even after the Atleti lead and Barca had the 2-1 they reduced the deficit to 2-1. I still thought that maybe it was still over. Like, you know, when Ferran scored, I thought, okay, it's 2-2 now. Maybe it'll stay 2-2 because it did not look like a game where you really thought, okay, now it's really gonna we're gonna see a lot of goals. It just never seemed like that kind of game, but it is what we saw. And you know, again, I know I keep talking about Hansi Flick, but he's genuinely just done a phenomenal job with this team. I think people might say Dani Olmo didn't do too well. I thought he did pretty well, given with what he was given. Because again, Lewandowski's runs were constantly thwarted by the defenders. Lamine Yamal was constantly cornered by three, and Alejandro Balde couldn't do too much down the left because he was also constantly, tagged down, pinned down by Marcos Llorente and Giuliano Simeone, who was everywhere on the pitch. Right, so I don't think Olmo could do more than he did. Not to speak not to speak ill of his ability. It's just that you rely on the players ahead of you, and when you can't find them because they keep getting marked out, you just got to deal with what you're given. And I thought he did well. I thought there were a couple of chances that he created that, in my eyes, should have been goals, but we move. Um, yeah, and for Ferran Torres, again, I'll keep saying it. I think he's one of the most underrated players in Barca at the moment, because again, he just keeps proving that he still got something. He still got something. And yeah, you could say, well, he didn't win us the game, but he scored the equalizer and then scored the final nail in the coffin. So, and he did that in like what, 14, 15 minutes, right? So, well, actually no, 20 minutes. But still, he's a solid player, and I still think he has a future at Barca. I would really like to see Hansi Flick experiment more with Ferran Torres as the number 9, as like a way of phasing Lewandowski out of this team, because realistically, I mean, he is 36 years of age, and he can't have that much more to give at a high level. You know what I'm saying? Like, sure, he scored that goal today, but he also didn't do much else. And that's just facts. He just didn't do much else. And that's okay. But Barca need to look ahead to that. And I honestly think Ferran Torres could be a short-term answer until a striker pops up somewhere that does extremely well and also would like to go to Barca, where the club is also happy to sell him to Barca, which in itself usually is the problem nowadays with all the financial struggles. But yeah, man, I think honestly I would like to see Ferran Torres in that striker role going forward, especially with Lewandowski playing the way he did today. And Rafinha at the number 10 again just works really well, but it also means that Olmo can't fit into it because you can't really play him off the left. He's not as effective on the left. But equally, I don't know that Rafinha's best spot is the number 10. I just think because he moves around so much, it makes sense to have him as more of a central player so he can attack through the middle and then spray it out right or left, or go back for a 1-2 or something. It just makes more sense. But I think given everything, I think Barcelona did I thought Barca deserved the win today. Not from a biased standpoint either. I just think if you look at how the game went, I thought Barca deserved the win today, but there was a long time in that game where it did not seem like they would come away with it. But again, that's the Hansi Flick effect. That's what he's managed to do with this team, and that's why Barca are still in all competitions. That's why they're still fighting in all competitions. And if you look at how what Barca's schedule is looking like going forward now, so obviously the Osasuna game was postponed, right? So then they played Benfica, and now they played ATLÉTI, and they still have another ATLÉTI game to go in the Copa del Rey. They've played ATLÉTI for the second and last time in the league this season. That was the second and last time Barca and ATLÉTI face off in La Liga this season. Next game is against Girona at the Montjuic, and then the extension of the Copa del Rey. So last time they played at the Montjuic, and it was the 4-4 scored again. And then you have the 4-4 not the 4-4, but the return fixture. So it's pretty much like a both teams go into it with neither a deficit nor an advantage. Although Barca, of course, will be flying high from the 4-2 now, but we do have, unfortunately, an international break. So the next game against Girona will be on March 30th at 4:15 on a Sunday, and you can make of that what you will. But that's just it. So you have a 2-week international break. Hopefully Barca won't have any injuries coming back from it. And then you have ATLÉTI v Barca in the Copa. And then Barca have Real Betis, Leganés, and Celta in April. And then they have Mallorca, Real Valladolid, then a Clásico. And this game could also be super crucial, because you have this game, and then you have Espanyol v Barca, and then you have Villarreal, who have not been doing too well this season, and then the from what we from what the reports are saying and from what we're understanding, the Osasuna game could be somewhere between these two, or at some point here, is where it's where Osasuna would like it to be anyway, right? So let's say Barca win against Real Madrid, and then they face Espanyol, and I can't imagine Barca losing that one because Espanyol have not been doing too well this season anyway, even if it is at the RCD Stadium. And then Barca face the Osasuna game to get back on equal terms when it comes to games played. That's pretty much the Liga season, right? So, yeah, I mean, Barca don't have many more tough games to go in the league. It's all for the taking, really. But yeah, like I said, it's an international break, and then you have Girona, and then you have the Copa, and then you have La Liga and Champions League, and La Liga and Champions League. So it's going to be a tough run of games, but it's not going to be against objectively tough opponents, which is why I think Barca do have a chance really to come out on top here. And given how it's been going and given what Hansi Flick has built, I don't see a reason why they wouldn't be. So that is it, y'all. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this. I do realize that we're still trying to figure out when to do these streams and how to do these streams and all that, but we want you guys to be involved. I want the chat to be chatting. I don't want the chat to be watching. I want the chat to be chatting. I want to hear you guys' opinion. I want to discuss with you guys, so yeah, hopefully we can boost that for next time, but that is it for this time, yo. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it was a bit of a shorter stream, but it's been a long day and a long evening, and that's it. Y'all go get some sleep. And like I said, we'll be doing these streams at least weekly. So we've already done like 2 this week, or 3. We're gonna be streaming next week also. And again, we're doing these on Twitter/X. I don't like X. I don't say Twitter. Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. That's where we stream, and we're gonna stream on those platforms every single time. For commentary, I did commentary today in the last game, and I'm going to be doing commentary going forward on Twitter Spaces on top of the commentary that we already do on Twitter. So if you don't like to do Spaces, or if you don't like to watch Spaces, listen to Spaces or whatever, and you just like to scroll through and see people's opinions and see the scores and all that, you can follow us on that, and you can also check the space if you want. The idea with the Spaces is that we have people coming in, like you guys come in and you talk on the halftime show. You throw your opinions throughout. We took some tweets today and talked about those as well. So yeah, that's the goal. The goal with all this stuff is to involve you guys more. So we hope that you would like that, and we hope to see that going forward. But we are adding the audio-visual content to our palette at Bloggranagram, and if you guys have any ideas for stuff you want us to see doing on stream, let us know, man. Let us know, and we'll be more than happy to do it. So that is it. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. Get yourself a good night's rest. It's been a hectic evening. And again, we'll be streaming throughout the international break as well, but the commentary will return on March 30th when Barca take on Girona at 4:15 on a Sunday. So that is it. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great rest of your night, and bye-bye.